Mount Wilson Trail Race began in 1908 when a very tough group of young men raced up the trail from Sierra Madre, rested for half an hour at the summit, and then raced down the hill again. There began the tradition of the second oldest foot race in California. The event was held sporadically for the next 40 years, then forgotten. Yet the race returned in the fall of 1965, and then in the spring of 1967, it took its present form as part of Search and Rescue Days, held to promote interest in and support for Sierra Madre's volunteer mountain search and rescue team. The present race is about half the length of the original event. The start and finish lines are in Kirsting Court in the center of Sierra Madre. Kirsting Court still resides as the hub of Sierra Madre's downtown, once a stop on the Red Car Line, which was the rail transit system back in the 1940s, and which is not in operation today. Participants race up Baldwin Avenue to Miramonte, then left onto the trail. They proceed up the steep trail to Orchard Camp, about 4.2 miles from the start, where, after touching the large oak, they turn around and retrace their steps. The elevation gain is about 2,100 feet along a trail that is rarely more than 3 feet wide and has vertical drops of several hundred feet in many places. The return run downhill is almost as difficult since the front runners and back markers must negotiate their way past one another on the narrow trail. Emergency support is stationed along the course to provide aid if needed. Boy Scout and Cub Scout troops provide water at 2 locations, the 2.3 and the 4.3 mile marks. In 2008, to mark the 100th anniversary, over 350 runners showed up. The race would have been postponed due to the recent fires about 2 weeks prior, but no one would hear of canceling a momentous event. People of all ages and backgrounds meet every Saturday morning of Memorial Weekend to pay tribute to the beautiful San Gabriel Mountains. The difficulty of the event depends somewhat on the state of the trail, and this varies considerably from year to year depending on the extent of the storm damage during the preceding winter. Therefore, records are not kept. However, the winner in 1992, Michael Gottardi, completed the course in 58 minutes and 19 seconds. In 1994, about 200 runners competed. Growing up, the Mount Wilson Trail was considered our backyard, as hiking was frequent and the trailhead only a few blocks from home. I vaguely remember bringing water with us because we could count on refreshing ourselves at the stream, only 1.3 miles up. It wasn't until my early 20s and after college that I even considered running in a race. And it was my Uncle Bill who encouraged me to do so. He had run the race several times, and it seemed like a fun and challenging thing. So how many times have you run this race?
I think 8 to 10. The first time I ran the race, I was 12 years old and I came in 3rd place in junior high class and I got a medal. And that's probably the best I'll ever do in the rest of my life.
How old are you now?
51, going to be 52 in June.
While Uncle Bill may seem old, the last participant in the 2009 Mount Wilson Trail Race finished in just under 4 hours, and he is 82 years old.
I first ran the Mount Wilson Trail Race 3 years ago in 2006.
And why is it this race that you run and you don't usually run any others?
Because this is the toughest race and this is the only one I can really handle. And I'd rather ride my bicycle because I'm very old and my joints kill me.
Actually, the race itself is unlike anything that I've ever done, any sort of 5K or 10K, or I've even run a marathon. It's totally different than that. I say probably the reason why I like running this race is because one, this was one of the very first hikes I went on with my wife Deanne, and it was very cool the first time I met her godfather Bill. So there's some sentimental value there, but they call it a race, but I think it's basically kind of just a challenge for yourself, because I'm not really racing anyone but myself on this one.
In 2009,
Britt ran his personal best time, 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 39 seconds. Uncle Bill, although first to Orchard Camp, came in around 6 minutes after Britt, and myself, I did my second worst time at 1 hour, 47 minutes.
The uninhabited has always drawn people, inviting them into its mysteries. Luckily, such an adventure takes place in the foothills of Sierra Madre and is here to stay for another 100 years.